Captain Theron Ash stood at the viewport of the transport vessel, watching the swirling nebula of Sector 7 paint the darkness in shades of crimson and gold. His weathered hands, scarred from countless battles, gripped the metal railing as he tried to push away the weight of his latest assignment. The orders in his jacket pocket felt heavier than the plasma rifle strapped to his back. "Sir, we're approaching the detention facility." His pilot's voice crackled through the cum. Theron closed his eyes briefly, steeling himself for what was to come. 3 years of service to the Galactic Coalition had taught him to follow orders without question, but this mission sat like poison in his gut. He was to collect to refugees a widow and her child from the fallen world of Netheron, deliver them to Vex Corin, a name whispered in the darkest corners of the galaxy's underworld. The detention facility was a stark, gray structure floating in the void between star systems. As Theron walked through its sterile corridors, the sound of his boots echoed hollowly against the metal walls. Guards nodded respectfully at his uniform. Unaware of the turmoil brewing beneath his composed exterior, Cell 847C held his cargo. When the door slid open, Theron found himself looking at 2 figures huddled together on a narrow bench. Rose gracefully, her movements fluid despite the cramped quarters. Her skin held an ethereal violet hue that seemed to catch and reflect the harsh fluorescent lights, while her golden eyes regarded him with a mixture of wariness and dignity.
Oh.
Her long, dark hair was braided with small silver ornaments that chimed softly as she moved. "I am Zara Nethys," she said, her accent carrying the melodic tones of her homeworld. "This is my daughter, Myra." The child, no more than 8 standard years old, peered out from behind her mother's protective embrace. Her skin held the same violet tint, though lighter. Her golden eyes sparkled with an innocence that made Theron's chest tighten. Unlike her mother's cautious demeanor, Myra stepped forward with curious bravery. "Are you here to help us?" she asked, tilting her head in a gesture that reminded Theron painfully of his own daughter. Lost years ago in the fires of war, Theron's throat constricted. He had expected defiance, perhaps tears or pleading. He had not expected trust. "I'm Captain Ash. I'm here to transport you." Zara's eyes searched his face, and he saw the intelligence there, the understanding that their fate hung in the balance. Yet she maintained her composure, one hand resting protectively on her daughter's shoulder. "Where are we going?" Zara asked quietly. The lie came easier than the truth would have. "To a resettlement colony. You'll be safe there." Myra brightened immediately, but Zara's expression remained carefully neutral. She knew, Theron realized. Somehow she understood that their journey would not end in safety. As they walked toward the docking bay, Myra slipped her small hand into Theron's larger one. The simple gesture hit him like a plasma blast to the chest. "Protector rather than a weapon. My papa used to have hands like yours," Myra said conversationally, looking up at him with those impossibly bright eyes, strong and warm. "Mama says strong. Hands can build things or break things, but the person decides which." Theron's step faltered slightly. Behind them, he heard Zara's sharp intake of breath, as if her daughter's words had struck her as well. The weight of the orders in his pocket seemed to multiply, pressing down on his shoulders until he could barely breathe. As they boarded his ship, the starward bound, Theron found himself at a crossroads he hadn't anticipated. The mission was simple: deliver the cargo to Vex Corin's compound on Zarian Prime, collect his payment, and return to base. Clean, efficient, profitable. But as Myra settled into the passenger seat with wonder in her eyes, and Zara sat beside her daughter with quiet dignity, Theron felt something crack inside his carefully constructed armor. These weren't cargo. They were Peopla, mother trying to protect her child, a little girl who still believed in heroes. The ship's engines hummed to life, and Theron set course for Zarian Prime, even as every fiber of his being screamed in protest. In the reflection of the viewport, he caught sight of Zara watching him, and for a moment their eyes met in the glass. In that shared glance, he saw not just fear, but a flicker of hope that made his decision all the more unbearable. The stars stretched into lines as they entered hyperspace, carrying them toward a fate that Theron was no longer certain he could deliver. The starward bound cut through hyperspace with mechanical precision. But inside the passenger compartment, tension filled the recycled air like smoke. Theron had given Zara and Mira the small crew quarters, citing regulations, though the truth was he couldn't bear to see them caged in the cargo hold where prisoners usually traveled. Mira had fallen asleep against her mother's shoulder, her small form rising and falling with peaceful breaths. Zara's golden eyes remained fixed on the swirling vortex of hyperspace through the porthole. But Theron could see the reflection of tears she refused to let fall. "She doesn't know, does she?" Theron asked quietly from the doorway, unable to stay. Away despite his better judgment, Zara's shoulders tensed, but she didn't turn around. "Would you tell your child they were being sold into slavery?" The words hit him like a physical blow. Theron stepped into the room, his conscience warring with years of military conditioning. "How long have you known?" "Since the moment you lied." "About the resettlement colony." Zara finally faced him, her ethereal beauty marred by exhaustion and grief. "Vex Corin's reputation reaches even to the outer colonies. We heard the stories before Nethera fell." Theron's jaw clenched. "Then why? Didn't you fight? Try to escape?" A bitter smile crossed Zara's lips. "Where would we run? The Coalition controls every spaceport, every transport. You humans have made sure of that." She paused, studying his face. "Though you don't seem like the others. There's something different in your eyes." "You don't know me," Theron said, "but—" The words lacked conviction. "I know pain when I see it." Zara's voice softened. "You've lost someone too." The observation struck too close to home. Theron turned away, but found himself speaking anyway. "My wife, my daughter. They were on New Haven when the Zirathi attacked 3 years ago. I was deployed on the other side of the galaxy. Couldn't get there in time." "What was her name?" Zara asked gently. "Alina. She was 7, just like—" He gestured toward Mira, unable to finish the sentence. "Like Mira." Zara's understanding was evident. "Is that why you became a soldier? To fight the ones who took them?" Theron's hands clenched into fists to make them pay. Every mission, every battle, it was supposed to mean something, supposed to honor their memory. He laughed bitterly. "Instead, I'm delivering innocence to the very monsters I swore to fight." Zara rose carefully, not wanting to wake her daughter, and moved closer. To him, the soft chiming of her silver hair ornaments filled the silence. "Then don't. It's not that simple. These are direct orders from men who see us as objects to be traded." Zara's golden eyes blazed with sudden fire. "Husband died, fighting to protect our world from people like Vex Corin. He believed that sometimes the right choice is also the hardest one." Theron met her gaze, seeing not just the grief and fear he expected, but strength, resolve that matched his own. In its intensity, "If I disobey these orders, we'll all be hunted. The Coalition doesn't forgive deserters. And if you follow them, you'll become everything you once fought against." The truth of her words settled in his chest like a weight. In the soft light of the quarters, Zara's violet skin seemed to glow with an inner radiance that made her appear almost ethereal. When she reached out and placed her hand over his scarred knuckles, he felt warmth spread up his arm. "You're not like them, Theron Ash," she whispered, using his first name for the first time. "I can see it in how you look at her, how you've treated us with kindness when cruelty would have been easier." Mira stirred in her sleep, murmuring something in her native language. Both adults turned to watch her, and in that moment, something shifted between them. It's not quite trust, but the foundation upon which trust might be built. "She reminds me of Alina," Theron admitted quietly. "The way she sees wonder in everything, even in the darkest places." "Children are hope made manifest," Zara replied.
Yeah.
"That's what my husband used to say. Even when the bombs fell on Nethera, even when we lost everything, Mira still believed in tomorrow." Theron studied Zara's profile as she gazed lovingly at her. "Daughter." There was something magnetic about her presence, a grace that transcended her circumstances. Despite everything she had endured, She hadn't let bitterness consume her. Instead, she had chosen to protect what mattered most. The compound is heavily guarded, he found himself saying. Corin has connections throughout the sector. Even if we ran, they'd find us. Zara turned to face him fully, and for a moment, they stood close enough that he could see the flecks of amber in her golden eyes. Then we make sure they don't. The ship's navigation system chimed, indicating they had reached the halfway point of their journey. Soon, they would drop out of hyperspace and face the reality of what lay ahead. But in this moment, suspended between the stars, Theron felt something he hadn't experienced in 3 years. A reason to fight for something, rather than against it. As if sensing his internal struggle, Zara squeezed his hand gently. Whatever you decide, Captain, know that. Your kindness has meant everything to us. Her touch lingered longer than necessary, and Theron found himself reluctant to pull away. In her eyes, he saw not just gratitude, but something deeper. Something that terrified and thrilled him in equal measure. The stars continued their ancient dance outside the porthole, indifferent to the human drama unfolding within the ship. But for Theron, the universe had suddenly become a much smaller, more precious place. The crimson sun of Zarian Prime cast long shadows across the desert wasteland as the starward-bound descended toward Vex Corin's compound. From the air, the fortress looked like a mechanical cancer sprawled across the barren landscape, black metal and razor wire, with guard towers jutting up like broken teeth against the bloody sky. Theron's hands trembled slightly on the controls as he guided the ship toward the designated landing pad. The passenger compartment, he could hear Mira's excited chatter about the red world they were visiting, her innocent wonder a stark contrast to the hell that awaited her. Approaching the compound now, his co-pilot's voice crackled through the cum. Corin's people are expecting us. Theron's jaw clenched. He had spent the remaining hours of their journey in agonizing indecision, torn between duty and conscience. Every time he looked at Mira's trusting smile or caught Zara watching him with those knowing golden eyes, his resolve to complete the mission crumbled a little more. The landing was smooth, but as soon as the engines powered down, Theron heard the heavy footsteps of Corin's security team surrounding the ship. Through the viewport, he could see armed guards in black armor taking positions, their weapons trained on his vessel. Captain Ash, came a gravelly voice through the external. Come, welcome to Zarian Prime. Please prepare your cargo for inspection. Cargo. The word made Theron's stomach churn. He made his way to the passenger quarters, where Zara was braiding Myra's hair with gentle, practiced movements. Both looked up as he entered, and he saw his own conflict reflected in Zara's eyes. Are we here? Mira asked brightly, bouncing slightly on her seat. Is this our new home? Theron's throat constricted. We need to step outside for a moment. Zara's hands stilled in her daughter's hair. She understood. It's Mira, sweetheart, stay close to Mama, all right? As they made their way to the ship's exit, Theron's mind raced. He could still do this. Complete the mission, collect his payment, return to base. It was just business, he told himself, just following orders. But when the airlock hissed open and they stepped onto the scorching tarmac, reality hit like a physical blow. The compound stretched. Before them, in all its horrific glory, through the chain-link barriers, Theron could see holding pens filled with beings from dozens of different worlds' families huddled together. Children crying for parents who had already been sold, the hollow eyes of those who had given up hope. The air reeked of desperation and despair. Dear gods, Zara whispered, instinctively pulling Mira closer. Mama, why are those people in cages? Mira's voice had lost its cheerful tone, replaced by confusion and growing fear. Before Zara could answer, a tall figure emerged from the main building. Vex Corin was a human who had long ago shed any pretense of humanity. Cybernetic implants gleamed along his skull, and his smile revealed teeth that had been replaced with chrome. His expensive suit couldn't hide the predator beneath. Captain Ash, Corin's voice was like grinding metal. Right on time. And these must be our new acquisitions. He circled Zara and Mira like a buyer examining livestock, his augmented eyes scanning them with clinical precision. When his gaze lingered on Zara's graceful form, Theron's hands clenched into fists. Excellent specimens, Corin continued. The mother will fetch a premium price in the pleasure districts of Gallows 7, and the child well. There's always demand for the young ones in the mining colonies. Mira looked up at Theron with confusion and growing terror. Captain Theron? What does he mean? I thought we were going somewhere safe. The trust in her voice, the way she still looked to him for protection, shattered something inside Theron's chest. All around them, he could hear the sounds of anguish from the holding pens, a symphony of broken families and shattered dreams. The payment, as agreed, Corin said, producing a credit chip. Though I must say, your reputation for discretion precedes you, Captain. Perhaps we can do business again? Theron stared at the chip in Corin's outstretched hand. All he had to do was take it. Walk away. Pretend this never happened. Instead, he found himself thinking of Alina, his lost daughter. Would she have looked at him the same way Mira did now? Would she have trusted him to keep her safe? Actually, Theron said slowly, there's been a change of plans. Corin's smile faltered. I'm sorry, I said. There's been a change. Theron's hand moved to his sidearm. These people aren't for sale. The compound erupted into chaos. Guards raised their weapons, but Theron was already moving. His first shot took down the nearest guard, while his other hand grabbed Zara and Mira, pulling them toward the cover of his ship. What are you doing? Zara gasped as plasma bolts sizzled through the air around them. What I should have done from the beginning, Theron replied, returning fire with deadly accuracy. Get to the ship! They ran across the tarmac as alarms blared, and more guards poured from the compound buildings. Theron's military training kicked in, his body moving on autopilot as he laid down covering fire. But even as they reached the ship's ramp, he knew they were outnumbered. A plasma bolt caught him in the shoulder, spinning him around. As he fell to one knee, he saw Corin himself approaching, a massive energy rifle in his hands. You've made a terrible mistake, Captain, the slaver snarled. That's when Zara surprised them all. Moving with fluid grace, she snatched a fallen guard's weapon and fired with deadly precision. The bolt struck Corin in the chest, sending him sprawling. Not today, she said fiercely, her golden eyes blazing with protective fury. Together, they made it aboard the ship as Theron's engines roared to life. As they lifted off under heavy fire, Mira threw her small arms around Theron's waist. Thank you, she whispered against his chest. Thank you for saving us. In the chaos of their escape, as they broke atmosphere with Corin's fighters in pursuit, Zara caught Theron's hand in hers. For a moment, their eyes met across the bridge. He saw something there that made his heart race. Not just gratitude, but something deeper, warmer. You gave up everything for us, she said softly. No, Theron replied, squeezing her hand. As the stars opened before them, I found everything. Behind them, Zarian Prime dwindled to a red dot, taking with it Theron's old life and everything he had once believed about duty and honor. Ahead lay the unknown, dangerous, but full of possibility. They were free. And for the first time in years, Theron felt truly alive. 3 weeks had passed since their escape from Zarian Prime, and the starward bound had become both sanctuary and prison. They had taken refuge on Kythera, a lawless moon on the edge of civilized space, where asteroid miners and smugglers asked, no questions, as long as credits changed hands. The abandoned mining station they had claimed as temporary shelter was a maze of rusted corridors and flickering lights. But it offered something precious: invisibility. Here, among the forgotten dregs of the galaxy, they could pretend to be just another family of refugees seeking a new start. Theron stood watch at the station's observation deck, his eyes scanning the star field for signs of pursuit. The Coalition had branded him a deserter, while Vex Corin's network of bounty hunters scoured every system for revenge. They couldn't stay hidden forever. Papa Theron, look what Mama taught me. The word Papa still caught him off guard. Mira had begun using it naturally, and though Zara had initially tried to correct her daughter, she had eventually given up. Now, watching the little girl demonstrate a complex origami pattern she had folded from salvaged datasheets, Theron felt a warmth in his chest that had nothing to do with the station's aging life support systems. That's beautiful little star, he said, kneeling to examine her work. The nickname had emerged during their second week.
Oh.
When Mira had pointed out that her favorite constellation looked like a dancer, Zara appeared in the doorway, carrying a steaming cup of synthesized T1. Of the few luxuries they had managed to procure, her violet skin seemed to glow in the soft light, and Theron found himself studying the elegant curve of her neck. The way her silver hair ornaments caught the light when she moved. "Any sign of them?" she asked quietly, settling beside him on the salvaged cargo crates they used as furniture. "Nothing yet, but they're out there." Theron accepted the tea gratefully, their fingers brushing as she handed him the cup. The contact sent a familiar warmth up his arm, one that had become increasingly difficult to ignore over the past weeks. The boundaries between protector and protected had blurred. Zara had proven herself capable in ways that constantly surprised him, jury-rigging their damaged systems with intuitive engineering skills, negotiating with suspicious traders who might have cheated a human but respected her quiet dignity. She was his equal in every way that mattered, and increasingly he found himself thinking of her as much more than someone under his protection. "Myra," Zara called softly, "why don't you practice your reading in the next chamber?" "The one with the pretty lights?" Their daughter, the word came naturally, now looked between them with the uncanny perceptiveness of children. "Are you going to do grown-up talking?" "Something like that." Zara smiled, ruffling Mira's hair. "Stay where we can see you, all right?" As Mira skipped away, her footsteps echoing in the empty corridors. An intimate silence settled between the adults. Theron was acutely aware of Zara's proximity, the way her presence seemed to charge the recycled air around them. "I've been thinking about what happens next," Zara said, her golden eyes fixed on the stars beyond the viewport. "We can't keep running forever. Eventually they'll find us. I won't let them take you." The words came out more fiercely than Theron had intended. "Either of you. I've lost one family already. I won't lose another." Zara turned to face him, and he saw his own feelings reflected in her gaze. "Is that what we are now? A family?" Question hung between them like a bridge waiting to be crossed. Theron set down his tea with trembling hands, suddenly aware of how close they were sitting, how the soft light played across her features. "I know I have no right," he began hesitantly. "I'm the one who was supposed to deliver you to hell. I'm a deserter, a wanted man with nothing to offer but—" Zara silenced him by placing her fingers gently against his lips. "You're the man who chose love over duty, who gave up everything to protect strangers." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "You're the man who gave us hope when we had none left." They were leaning closer now, drawn together by weeks of shared danger and growing affection. When Zara's hand moved from his lips to rest against his cheek, Theron felt years of carefully constructed walls crumble. "Zara," he breathed, and then her lips were on his. The kiss was gentle at first, tentative, as if they were both afraid of breaking something precious. But as Zara's arms wound around his neck and he pulled her closer, it deepened with the passion of two souls who had found sanctuary in each other. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. Zara rested her forehead against his, her golden eyes shining with unshed tears. "I thought I would never feel this way again," she whispered. "After my husband died, I thought my heart was buried with him. I thought mine died with Elena." And my daughter Theron replied, stroking her cheek with reverent fingers, "But you and Mira, ... you've brought me back to life." Their second kiss was interrupted by an urgent beeping from Theron's scanner. His blood turned to ice as he recognized the Signal 3 ships dropping out of hyperspace, moving in a search pattern toward their hiding place. "We have to go," he said, already reaching for their emergency packs. Now, within minutes, they were running through the station's maintenance tunnels, Myra clutched in Zara's arms as Theron led them toward their ship. Behind them, they could hear the sounds of forced entry as bounty hunters breached the station's outer airlocks. As they reached the starward bound, Theron's scanner showed the hunters closing in. There would be no clean escape this time. They would have to fight their way out. "Whatever happens," he told Zara as the engine spun up, "know that these have been the best weeks of my life." She kissed him once more, fierce and desperate, before strapping herself and Myra into the emergency seats. This isn't goodbye, Theron Ash. We're stronger together. As the ship burst from the station's docking bay with enemy fire lighting up space around them, Theron allowed himself to believe she was right. Love had already changed them all, perhaps. It would be enough to see them through whatever came next in the passenger compartment. Myra's voice carried over the ship's alarms. Don't worry, Mama. Papa Theron always keeps us safe. Despite the impossible odds, despite the hunters closing in from all sides, Theron found himself smiling. She was right. He would always keep them safe. Because they were family now, bound together by something stronger than blood or law. They were bound by love. The dying light of twin suns painted the sky of Eloria in shades of amber and rose as the starward bound limped through the planet's atmosphere. Engines sputtering and hulls scorched from their latest escape. For 6 months, they had been running from coalition forces, from Corrin's bounty hunters, from a galaxy that seemed determined to tear them apart. Eloria was their last hope. A frontier world so remote that even the star charts marked it as uninhabitable. But as Theron guided their damaged ship toward a valley hidden between towering crystalline formations, he saw the beauty in this forgotten corner of space. Vast fields of silver grass swayed in the alien breeze, and bioluminescent flowers dotted the landscape like fallen stars. Is this home? Mira asked from her seat, her voice heavy with exhaustion, but still touched with wonder. The months of running had aged her beyond her years, yet her spirit remained unbroken. I hope so, little star, Theron replied, his own voice rough with fatigue and something deeper the weight of all they had endured together. The ship touched down near a grove of spiral trees, whose leaves chimed like distant bells in the wind. As Theron powered down the engines, possibly for the last time given their condition, he felt Zara's hand slip into his. Her touch had become his anchor through the storms of their fugitive existence. They had barely finished setting up their emergency camp when Theron's long-range sensors detected the familiar signature of pursuit ships breaking through the atmosphere. His blood ran cold as he recognized the lead vessel Corrin himself, along with what looked like a full squadron of coalition fighters. They found us, he said quietly, not wanting to frighten Myra, who was gathering the glowing flowers nearby. Zara's face went pale, but her golden eyes remained steady. How long do we have? Minutes, maybe less. Theron was already moving, checking his weapons, calculating defensive positions among the crystal formations. I can hold them off long enough for you and Mira to reach the caves. There might be another way out through no. Zara's voice was firm. We stay together, Zara. Be reasonable. If they capture you, then we face it as a family. She moved closer, her hands framing his face with infinite tenderness. These months with you have been the happiest of my life. Since my world fell, I won't spend my last free moments running from you. The sound of approaching ships grew louder, and Theron saw Mira looking up from her flowers with growing alarm. In that moment, he was watching his wife for. That's what Zara had become in every way that mattered. Stand ready to fight beside him while their daughter looked to them for protection. Theron felt a clarity that had eluded him throughout their flight. Wasn't running anymore. He was protecting his home. The first transport landed with a thunderous roar, disgorging armed mercenaries in black armor. Corrin emerged last, his cybernetic implants gleaming in the sunset light, a cruel smile playing across his chrome teeth. Captain Theron Ash, the slaver's voice echoed across the valley. You've led us quite a chase, but it ends here. Theron stepped forward, placing himself between his family and their pursuers. The only thing ending here is your hunt. There. Under my protection, Corrin laughed, the sound like grinding metal. Your protection. You're a deserter and a thief. You have no authority, no power. Surrender the merchandise and I might let you die quickly. They're not merchandise, Theron said quietly, his hand resting on his weapon. They're my family. Touching. Corrin raised his energy rifle. Say goodbye to Daddy, little girl. What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. Corrin's finger tightened on the trigger, the weapon's charging whine filling the air. Theron dove forward, knowing he wouldn't be fast enough, knowing that his story would end with the failure to protect those he loved most. But Zara was faster. Moving with the fluid grace that had first captivated him, she snatched up one of Theron's spare weapons and fired in one smooth motion. The bolt caught Corrin center mass, spinning him around and sending him crashing into his own ship's hull. The battle that followed was brief but fierce. The mercenaries, demoralized by their leaders, found themselves outmaneuvered by two people fighting not for credits or glory, but for love itself. When the last enemy fell, the valley returned to its peaceful silence, broken only by the chiming of the spiral trees as the enemy ships retreated without their leader. Theron found himself sitting beside the grove, his arm wrapped around Zara. While Mira curled up in both their laps, the adrenaline was fading, leaving behind the profound realization that they were finally, truly free. "You could have left us," Zara said softly, echoing words from what felt like a lifetime ago. "Could have followed your orders, collected your payment, gone back to your old life." "What old life?" Theron replied, pressing a kiss to her temple. "This is the only life that matters." Mira stirred in their embrace, looking up at the first stars appearing in the darkening sky. "Papa Theron, are we really safe now?" "Yes, little star, we're home." As if to confirm his words, one of the bioluminescent flowers drifted past on the evening breeze, soft light joining the symphony of stars above. In the distance, they could see the silhouettes of creatures moving through the silver grass. First signs that this world was not as uninhabited as the charts suggested, or rather home to beings who had also sought refuge in its remote beauty. Zara tilted her face up to his, and in the starlight, Theron saw not just love, but complete trust, complete acceptance. When she kissed him, it tasted like promises and new beginnings. "I love you," she whispered against his lips, the first time either of them had spoken the words aloud. "And I love you," he replied, the words feeling like coming home, both of you. "My stars, my universe, my everything." Above them, the twin moons of Eloria rose like silver coins, casting their gentle light over a valley where a soldier, a widow, and a little girl had found something the galaxy had tried to deny them. A place where love could grow without fear, where family was defined not by blood or species, but by the choice to protect and cherish one another. As Mira fell asleep between them, her small hand trustingly holding Theron's scarred fingers, he understood that this was what he had been fighting for all along. Not revenge, not redemption, but this perfect moment of peace with the people who had become his reason for existing. The stars wheeled overhead in their ancient patterns, indifferent to the small drama that had played out below. But for Theron, Zara and Mira, those same stars, now spelled out a different story, one of love conquering duty, of choice triumphing over orders, of three hearts finding their way home across the vast darkness of space. Their new life had begun. The end.